You're listening to the Spear Podcast. I'm Thomas Christian, joined by Alex McCreery, and here we have a special guest, Matt Wider, here to talk about men's baseball. So the most recent game, the Spartans, Hunter Doro rattles off 6 home runs in a row. Matt, can you just tell us a bit about the story of the game that you went to over the weekend?
Yeah, so I mean, it was kind of insane because Hunter's not a big guy. Like he ended up playing or hitting in the 2 hole, but when you see him, you're like, okay, this is a second baseman's body. But then like he has the power of Big Poppy, which is like a big hoss. So I think that's like the craziest part about everything.
Right. You talk a lot about the pitching toe too. It's not Hunter Doro is like the headline, right? He's the highlight. But then what else you got going on in this game? I mean, it was a 4-3 win over the Pilots. It was a top-ranked team. This is a big deal for San Jose State.
Yeah, I think it's just nuts how everybody just comes together. I mean, after kind of playing some travel ball in my life, you can kind of tell, okay, what teams like each other, what teams don't like each other. And like, yeah, I think this is a team where if somebody just gets rocked and gives up 5 runs, there's not like anger towards that guy of like, wow, you're really messing up our shine in the season. There's really none of that. I think guys just enjoy playing baseball with each other. It's very simple, but it's like, and just like with any occupation, it's like, are you happy to see the people you see every day? If the answer is yes, then you might get some better results out of it.
Right. And I don't know if you were following the Spartans baseball team last year, but part of what they had to deal with at the beginning of the season was like a month absence, or I think like 5 weeks where they weren't able to play because of COVID, basically related things. And I remember talking to some of the players, and they basically were talking about how they never got that chance to mesh. So, do you see sort of a difference between some of the older guys and like or the guys that were there last year and then now? What's coming together more?
Well, so I wasn't covering the team at all last year. I was at my community college. But as far as talking to the guys this year, the one word they keep on saying is family, family, family. And with a team with 23 new faces, you can form that within a couple months. I think that's the great part about being a spring team where you have everybody there in the fall semester. And that's when you could kind of find your friends. You could find guys you could grab a bite with, go to like the local taco trucks and I don't know, grab some or whatever that meal may be, and just kind of whatever the activity is, you have a fall semester be like, hey, I found some friends. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. And especially with no restrictions, like you could just go get tacos and it's not a big deal. Like you don't have to worry about masks. There's not like any complications from COVID. You could just do things.
Kind of wanted to get what was the environment like? Obviously, it was a close win, and it was a walk off. But what was like the environment like for the fans? Obviously, we don't have the biggest showing, but what I feel like having a more closer environment where it's just like the family members. What's that environment like after a big win?
Yeah, I mean, these parents have gone to so many games and just games where it's like, because everything before when you play growing up, it's like, yeah, you want to make friends. I think every kid should have a hobby, but you're doing everything going out to whatever random city it is for this opportunity. You do these things for what they're at right now. And I think the parents are just happy to be like, hey, there's kind of a gamble involved when you're just like, hey, this is going to be every single weekend. We're driving out to Cupertino. Every single weekend, we're going to like Field of Dreams or whatever it's called in Chino Hills. So yeah, and I think the parents are just happy that like it kind of pat yourself on the back where it's like we actually did it. Like we followed through and our kids are succeeding.
Awesome. So I wanted to dive into your piece a little bit here, right? So you talk a lot about the pitching. Obviously, in a close game, that's going to be something that's like extremely important. I like to think of pitchers specifically as like old Western gunslingers, right? You're standing on the mound, you're staring down that batter every time, and facing that batter takes a lot of character. So, what sort of character is this bullpen taking on for San Jose State?
Yeah, for just quoting them, like it's kind of a next man up mentality, and that's what you have to do. You can't like one has to be I did my job, and then you have to be trust that the next guy can do their job. So when you have that, and you're like, I don't have to be perfect every single time. I don't have to deliver a scoreless frame. There is some wiggle room if I hit a guy, if I miss, I don't know, down the heart of a plate, and somebody sends one 500 feet into orbit then you're like, there's still somebody who could come behind, who could relieve after me and get the job done. So as far as like bullpen culture, that's what it is. Next man up.
You think there's less fear because they know that they have guys behind them that are going to be able to take care of business?
Yeah, there definitely is like a fearlessness where obviously you don't want to give up 500-foot moonshots, like I said, but you're allowed to make a mistake. You're allowed to make kind of if you want to throw a ball in the hands on the black part of the plate, inside fastball. You're like, hey, this is a little bit risky. You're not complete. You're not riding. Everything doesn't ride on that one pitch where somebody hits a ding dong, and once again somebody comes behind.
Mm. So obviously, we have to mention Hunter Dora, right? Now, I don't think he continued his winning streak or his homer streak uh, last night, but early season sensation for the San Jose State Spartans. So, is this like the kind of guy? What do you make of his homer streak? Right, like is he the kind of talent that can keep this sort of thing going, not just necessarily a streak, but sort of the momentum? Is he a guy that can lead the Mountain West in homers, or is this more of a flash in the pan?
I think it's a flash in the pan. I mean, just seeing the way he's built, and he doesn't have like a big track record of hitting home runs, but it doesn't matter. Like that's not essential for the team to winning. Like compared to the team last year with Ibarra, where you're like, okay, this guy hit 14 bombs, but then just nobody else who really has the same power. Giroux doesn't have to hit home runs, and the team can still win, as you saw last night. Like he didn't, I believe he didn't register a hit, but he had 2 walks. So those 2 walks led to rallies, and that's I think the biggest part of at least what I'm getting from the team so far, that not one guy has to put the entire team on their back.
Well, part of that too is, I mean, the walks included, but also just having more bats in the lineup. Are any of these guys sort of the kind of a hitter that when he steps to the plate, do the pitchers feel him? Do you feel that sort of intimidation factor there?
As far as Duro goes, I mean, I'm sure every game creates new adjustments for pitchers. Every game creates a new scouting report. So obviously the scouting report now is pitch around him and pitch around Duro. So now you're seeing like those 2 walks. I feel like that's evidence of kind of giving him the Bonds treatment, where you don't want to put anything anywhere near his wheelhouse. But at the same time, you still have guys who could come in and hit behind him. Like Charles McAdoo has looked really solid. And then Omar Gastelum has been one of the best hitters so far, and obviously highlighted by his walk-off. So as far as like that, or it's just like there's no like main, I guess you have one pitch around guy, but as far as big bat just ready to send one at any given moment, not really. Like I obviously I don't think Dro's not going to hit a single one after this, but like if he comes below 15, I wouldn't be surprised.
Part of it too is, I mean, 6 straight homers in 6 straight games, right? That's going to be something that shows up in the scouting report. So that's not necessarily something that you can really worry about right now. But I want to talk about big picture. The last line in your piece was that the Spartans are now 1 win away from tying their win total from last year. So, is there sort of a difference? I know that you weren't actually covering the team last year, but just do you feel sort of a step in the direction for those guys that were a little older who have been here a little longer?
Yeah, I think there is so with the walk-off win last night, they actually tied their win total from last year, sitting at 6. And there is part of me that's like that's kind of a mulligan year. So because there's so much that goes on beyond the field that it's hard to compare like like COVID seasons to a season like this one where there's really no restrictions. Guys could just hang out. I think that's maybe one of the things I've learned the most as a journalist and kind of a reporter so far, is the importance of 2 dudes or however many dudes just going out to get a bite to eat, going out and watching a game. I think that's probably one of the main differences, and I think that's a great part about the transfer portal. I think we haven't really touched on that, but when you have what I believe 15 transfers, guys could just make new friends. I think sometimes we get so lost in numbers that we forget that they're college kids. They're like 18, 19, 20-year-olds. We just want to hang out some of the time. And then I think that's just what you're seeing right now, is guys who just genuinely enjoy being around each other. Now, granted, this is where me kind of being pretty far away from, like literally, no pun intended, but socially distanced away from them. Like I haven't gone to with them to any of these events I'm saying that I'm talking about. But at least from what I see in the dugout and what I see right now, everybody enjoys being around each other. And I think part of that is guys just making new friends.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of go off what you said about the transfer portal. What do you think so far, like from what you've seen this season? What makes it so interesting for players coming in through the transfer portal to like want to come to SJSU?
Well, as far as players like coming into a coming in from the transfer portal, you're given a whole new philosophy of baseball. I think a great example of that is James Camerata. So on the season preview I did, James Camerata talked about not James, Joey Camerata. So Joey Camerata is a pitcher, and he talked about wanting to sit at a heavier weight. He's a big dude. He's like 6'3", 6'4", and he said coaches letting him sit at 250. Yeah, I mean, he's not going to show up in Vogue, but at the same time, if that's where he feels more comfortable as a player, that's where he feels more comfortable as a player. And as somebody who respects mass and somebody who would rather sit at 250 instead of having a six-pack, I'll be like, okay, that's a guy I kind of relate to a lot. Yeah, I think that's part of it. Is every coach will have a different philosophy. And Joey had a great inning, I believe, last night. I think he had a scoreless frame in relief for Eden. So you're seeing that work where a coach could be like, yeah, I mean, it's not as aesthetically pleasing. Like, obviously, coach would rather have a guy shredded with a six-pack and obliques and washboard abs. But at the same time, it's like if a player can do better at 250 versus 215 and the results are showing, who cares how much he weighs?
There you go. I got two more for you, Matt. So, Matt, your writing specifically, and part of this podcast is that I want to, showcase the spirit a little bit more, not just the players, but the writers. So your writing's got all these great little jokes and little extra references. It's really fun to read, and that was kind of why I wanted to bring you on as one of the first guests for the Spear podcast for 2022.
Mm-hmm.
What is your inspiration for these kinds of creativity? Could you give us a little insight into that?
I guess there really isn't any creativity or inspiration behind it. That's like one of those things the answer for this is I was watching a Netflix thing as I was passing by about creativity, and I was like, this sucks. There's no way you could explain creativity. I think it's either there or it isn't. It's like you can't be halfway pregnant. So it's like I don't know what else to explain besides that. My brain picks up weird things. I guess I was telling my roommate yesterday, it's like it's harder for me to write a shopping list than to write an article. That's like the best way I could explain it, is that it's just random, it's weird. I grew up with one TV in the house, and I was raised by parents who were like pretty old when they had me. So it's just around weird older references. I guess that's maybe an explanation. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah,
and I love rap. I think rap's a big part.
Rap. Okay, fair enough. Hey, well, it's random, it's weird, but it's Matt. So one more time, is there anything else that we missed about this game or this piece or anything else you wanted to talk about right now?
I think, let me see, as far as the game last night, I think the part I really enjoyed was seeing how happy Sanfilippo was. The previous two games against Portland, they were blowouts. It was bad baseball. Ross went the first day, I believe had 7 or 8 walks, and then Thompson went the next day, had like 7 walks, and they combined for between those two games had 25 walks, which is awful. It's bad baseball. Sure, Thompson and Ross will tell you the same thing. It's disgusting. It's boring. It's watching paint dry on a wall. So when you have that, and then you have the next game on Sunday, which is a nail biter, it's exciting, it's gripping, it makes you want to, and then leaving with the win, it's like it makes you want to stay at the ballpark. And that's what I was talking to Sanfilippo about, where it's like Friday, Saturday, and I was like, I want to get the hell out of here. Sunday night, I want to stay here forever. Same thing with last night. I wanted to stay there forever. So it's a weird dichotomy going on.
The references in your writing, do you have like a set list of references that you have, or are you just coming up with these like on the spot depending on like how the game goes?
It kind of depends. Like I've tried to do things I'll write down. Like that's one thing like Eminem did, and you can kind of see it in 8 Mile, where it's like he's like always carrying around a pen and a pad, and like he even like talked not in 8 Mile, but like he's talked about in interviews with like Anderson Cooper about how he writes random lyrics down on his hand. I don't have that. I tried to do that and it didn't work. You just really have to understand baseball, and then it's kind of praying to God. It literally just like praying that can something please come up in my head. And but so to answer your question, long-winded way of saying no, it's just praying that like, because I never know when it's going to run out. So I just always kind of have to be piling up because I never know if it's just going to go away. And just thank you guys for enjoying them. I never Because I mean, when I'm writing on my laptop, like there's nobody there, there's no crowd. So I'm like, hopefully somebody gets this, hopefully somebody enjoys it. And it's just those
Right.
little moments that, like, I guess the purpose behind it is like, let's make sports in general not so much about sports. Let's make them more fun. Let's make them entertaining. So if like the one chuckle, like that's my currency. Like if you could chuckle once or twice during one of the things I write, then boom, I did my job.
All right. Well, you can check Matt out at the Spear, sjsu.com. Obviously, you're probably watching this on the Spear YouTube channel or through Spotify, somewhere else Spear related. As always, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. I'm Thomas and Alex joining you for the Spear podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This was fun. If you ever have if you have more compliments, then just kind of shoot them my way.
Will do. Will do.
If you want to add like an extra 5 minutes to compliment me, maybe 10, 30, hour, I have so much time to listen to people compliment me.
What's up, guys? My name is Alex. With Thomas, and I'm also with Jose Garcia, who is from the Spear. What's up, Jose?
What's up, everybody?
So we're going to talk about the track meet, and pretty much my first question for you is, who were some of the stars at the Mountain West Indoor Championships for San Jose State?
Yeah, so I was tasked to cover the men's side of things on track and field. Definitely Roman Johnson and Micah Hairston were the standouts from that event. I've also had previous experience covering it, track and field, and Coach Charles Ryan, he mentioned that Roman Johnson was actually the best athlete on the men's roster. So I already had an idea that he would, do well in the Mountain West Championships. Roman Johnson actually got first place in the 60-meter dash in the prelims, so he's able to qualify for the finals. And Micah Hairston, he also did the 60-meter hurdles, and he also got first place. So, yeah, they definitely did a good job representing San Jose State.
Cool. And then I also I saw that Micah Evans Bay, they also had a great showing, but from what I read from your article, that there's some sort of malfunction with the equipment. Could you kind of go into what happened with that?
Yeah. So it was being live streamed. I wasn't able to catch all of it because I was working, but luckily I was able to catch this moment where Micah Evans Bay in the 200-meter dash, I believe, the runners prepare in their spinner's blocks. That's what they launch off of once they start running. And he was kind of like testing out the runner's block, and he noticed there was something wrong with it. Like as soon as he tried to ball off of it, he just noticed something wrong, and he alerted somebody to come check it. Basically, what happened just delayed the event for like a couple of minutes. And eventually they just switched it out. So that was kind of a strange thing that happened to him. And I noticed he was kind of upset about it a little bit, I guess, because it just delayed things. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
Did that frustration have any effect on his performance? Did he not perform the way he thought he would? Was there some sort of emotion towards that? I know you said that he was a little upset.
Yeah. From what I remember, I think he still ended up doing pretty well in that event. He didn't get a top finish, but he was somewhere in the middle of the pack. So even though that occurred, he was still able to do pretty well, I'd say.
You also talk about the false start that they had. So,
yep.
I don't know. As a track runner, I mean that those sorts of little things, right? You only get one race, so
yeah.
It might be hard to recover from that. Did you see any sort of emotion or anything affecting? Could you tell from an outside perspective?
So unfortunately, I didn't get to see when that has happened exactly. Luckily I was able to catch it on the broadcast that they mentioned Micah Evans Bay also had a false start in an event. But yeah, I mean, I imagine it was really tough for him. It was like a overall weird day for him with the runner's block and also the false start. So he was unfortunately disqualified from that event.
When's the next time that we can go watch or follow the men's track team?
So that Mountain West Championships just wrapped up on the 27th, I believe. And I believe there's an event coming up on March 5th for the track team. Gotta double check what exactly that event is, but March 5th, I'll get back to you on that one.
But like as a championship, because I know that, just because the championship doesn't mean it's like the last game of the season, really.
Yeah.
What does that mean for Roman Johnson and Micah Harrison, right? Are they champions of the Mountain West, or what do we get to call them?
Yeah, so on the last day, they both qualified for the finals. You got to go through these prelims in order to move on to the next stage, if you will. And they did really well on the last day of the finals. Roman Johnson got first place once again. So, I mean, he's a champion, I would say. I'd say he earned a medal for receiving first place in the 60-meter dash for men. And Micah Harrison, I believe, he got fourth place. So another good finish for him as well. But yeah, I'd say they've definitely earned, the recognition, and they're doing a very good job of representing San Jose State.
So anything else that we should have asked you, or what else can we talk about in terms of Mountain West championships for the men's side?
I guess just to throw it in, like this track and field is relatively new for me, so I was kind of learning on the fly with everything. But I was just pretty fascinated with these runners. I mean, they're just competing with like the best of the best in the Mountain West Conference. So I'm still learning, about the sport, and I don't know, it's just really cool to see these athletes from our school that are performing really well and getting medals because of it.
And also, I want to ask you, Jose, one last question. What's your approach to covering these events, to writing about these events as a guy or, young reporter out here, grinding for the Spear? How do you do this sort of work?
For sure. So depending on the event, like I mentioned before, so this was something that I wasn't, it's not my main sport. So I got to do that extra research. I want to make sure that, I don't get things wrong. I use the right terminology, all that kind of thing. And also, just in general, the approach is just, if I'm able to watch the game, obviously watch the game. If not, if it's a box score, just try to highlight the top performances, of course, the score, if it's like basketball game, baseball, whatever. And just try to write a, factual, concise piece about the event. And, that's pretty much my formula for writing any type of story, I'd say.
Thank you, Jose, for being our second interview. We appreciate your time. And if you want to shout out any of your socials, like your Twitter.
Follow me at Jose D. Garcia. I think I forgot my school Twitter. My main Twitter, JDG_415. You can follow me there if you like.
415.
Sure.
Love it.
Yep.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, guys. All right. Of course. Thanks for having me.
This week in San Jose Sports.
There's a new member of the San Jose State Women's Basketball 1,000 Point Club. Senior forward Cindy Lewis achieved this elusive milestone in the Spartans' loss to Air Force last week. Lewis made history in a styling fashion with 17 points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks, 4 assists, and racking up her 5th double-double of the season on her way to becoming the 18th player in history to achieve this feat. If you'd like to read more on this piece, Ricardo Garcia of the Spear also went more in depth with this. So you can check out this article on thespear, sjsu.com.
San Jose State's women's tennis struggled in its home match against Santa Clara University, losing overall 4-3. SJSU was crushed by Santa Clara in its doubles matches 6-1 and 6-1, leaving the third doubles match unfinished at a loss of 5-2. If you want to read more, it's Emma Yuan at thespear.com.
Walking 15 batters and expecting to win is like thinking gas station sushi will be appetizing and not come with consequences. 7 of the 15 walks came from starting pitcher Ethan Ross and 1.2 innings pitched, throwing 78 pitches, more than half of them balls. If you're going to give that many free 90s, you have no chance to win, said head coach Brad Sanfilippo. If you'd like to learn more about the SJSU loss to Portland 15-5, read Matt Weiner's recap on thespearsjsu.com.
Reporter Jose Garcia of The Spear, Roman Johnson and Micah Hairston shine in Mountain West Indoor Champions. Junior track athletes both notched first-place finishes in the 60-meter dash and the 60-meter hurdle prelims, respectively. Johnson recorded a blazing fast time of 6.68, and Hairston a swift time of 8.03. Both Johnson and Hairston outlasted a plethora of Mountain West representatives in their field. Jose Garcia with more on thespear.com.
Mountain West Conference Showdown took place February 25th in the Provident Credit Union Event Center on senior night when a hungry New Mexico University Lobos ravaged the San Jose State University Spartans 80-58. The Spartans were coming off a tough loss against Air Force, during which Spartan forward Cindy Lewis notched 1,000 points as a Spartan and with this game accomplished an SJSU record 123 games played. If you'd like to read more, read the article by Naveen Krishan on the Spear, SJSU.com.
Men's basketball brought back down to earth by San Diego State. The sweet taste of victory lasted less than a week for the Spartans before their palates were filled with the familiar agony of defeat. What a great San Jose State story. That one's done by Matt Weiner, who's the men's basketball beat reporter for The Spear.
The United States Football League has recently been fortified with 7 new Spartan alumni. These former Spartans have made their journey from all walks of life to be drafted into the USFL. If you'd like to read more, read the article, 7 former Spartans drafted to the USFL by Naveen Krishan.
You didn't have to look between the chalk or the box score to notice the Spartans walking 10 batters and allowing 11 hits. Instead, you could have seen Portland's first base coach draped in shin and elbow guards, looking like the baseball version of the Terminator. The lack of command sets up the Spartans to lose the second game in a row to the Portland Pilots, and that piece is by Matt Weiner. So go check it out.
The quest for a flawless home field defense is still alive. The San Jose State softball team outclassed with Santa Clara Broncos 12-4 in its third game of the SVC Classic. The Spartans capped off a comeback win with an offensive explosion in the 6th inning, where they put up 8 total runs to put the mercy rule in effect and sent the Broncos packing early. To read more, read the article Spartans Overcome an Early Broncos Stampede to Secure Dominant Win by Ricardo Garcia.
San Jose State's women's water polo took on Cal State East Bay, the Pioneers, in a high-profile CSU matchup, 14-6. The number 12 ranked Spartans entered Saturday with a record of 9-8, East Bay 6-4, history to their name. Fresh off a 2-2 performance at the Fresno State Invite Tournament, the Spartans fell to ranked opponents. Number 10 UC Davis and number 8 Fresno State. Still, they crushed their non-ranked opponents, a good omen, heading into game day. If you want to read more about it, Spartans drowned Pioneers with offensive surge. Written by me, Thomas Christian.
San Jose State softball closed out the Silicon Valley Classic with a doubleheader win against the Sacramento State Hornets and St. Mary's College Gales. The Spartans and the Hornets started their Sunday morning with energy most could not have after a couple cups of coffee. During the top of the 3rd inning, Sac State got its first 2 runs from sophomore outfielder Alexis Parrish and junior outfielder Neve Pinion. If you'd like to read more, read the article Spartans close out Silicon Valley Classic with doubleheader wins by Autumn Blue.
San Jose State came out victorious against the Boise State Broncos 68-63. The game started off as a slugging match, and both teams matched each other's scoring. But the Broncos went on a 10-0 run to take an early 19-6 lead. This was attributed to the Broncos' ability to score in the paint at ease and capitalize on the fast break. They scored 8 of their 19 points. If you'd like to read more, check out our piece, Spartans Triumph in Last Game of the Season, written by our very own Alex McCreery.
Omar Gaslam's mad dash to center field was the final scene that played out during San Jose State's 6-5 walk-off win against the San Francisco Dons. He galloped like a gazelle that's being chased by a lion while having plush green in front of him like Jacoby Jones' house called during the 2013 Super Bowl. To read more, check out Gastelum's walk-off rope caps off dramatic comeback win.
And that is all for this week in the Spear, San Jose State sports in general.
Peace.